Welcome to the Papi and Chulo show. I am Chulo.
And I am Papi. Thank you, everybody, for being part of the show. It's a couple new things going on. You know, we're going into its new winter season, and I just wanted to be ready.
I'm sorry.
How about you, Chulo?
I can't. I could barely hear you. You got something covering your mouth there.
Well, it's just my safety precautions that I'm taking. You know, as a matter of fact, I would like to say for you to step back just a little bit more, getting a little too close, I would say.
Hold on. Let me move this back just for you a little bit. Just right there.
Thank you. You know, I'm actually not feeling too good with you being this close. I'm going to go ahead and put it just in case, tighten it up in the nose. Anywho, you know, this is serious stuff, dude.
You know, if you really strap it tight enough, you'll stop breathing, and actually, you probably can't get the
If I could, I would. Chulo. You think this is a joke for me? Do you think I take this as a joke?
Well, I live in MAGA country, dude. I don't deal with you scared folk. You know,
MAGA country, San Diego.
That's the most conservative California's gonna get now.
You know, but I also just want to say that it was on October 15th, 2020 that I met my Lord Jesus Christ. And I received the vaccines that I needed.
Baptized
on a comical note, dude, I remember somebody saying how there's such a similarity with this, like, date that you received your vaccines, the type of mask that you wear. And it was totally aligned to, like, the day of coming to Jesus Christ, accepting him as your Lord and Savior, the day you chose a church, the day you did, you know, whatever, that you got baptized. It was pretty comical. And I saw it in my friends as well, at least the ones that were really into this. I'm going to take my mask off.
I was going to say.
The ones that were.
You sound like having a hard time breathing.
Yeah, it was actually. That were into all this. And my stance has always been the same. And I think yours is probably the same. Tell me if you're different. You do what's best for you. You do what you think is necessary to protect yourself. And if you think it works, then don't force somebody else to do it just because you're afraid, just because you're fearful. If you're claiming that these things work, masks, vaccines, minimizing exposure, then that's on you. You know, it shouldn't be on somebody else. Exactly. This whole team effort thing, by all means, promote it, encourage people. Just don't shame, don't mock, don't belittle, don't call them stupid. There is such a thing as a science for healthy, immune young people to still intermingle in society, and they're less likely to have severe symptoms compared to a 70-year-old man, which was the highest mortality rate group, and comorbidities. They're the ones that were most vulnerable, the ones that were passing away, unfortunately.
Yeah, it became very dictatorial, and it became very dictatorial. How all of a sudden it wasn't just you can do whatever you want. This is America, free country. If you want to wear a mask, it became very like, if you do not wear a mask, you're basically as good as dead. And we do not associate with people like you who have these issues and who I remember even on TV these late night comedy people saying like. So, oh, you have a vaccine? Go, come on in. Oh, you don't have the vaccine and you're dying of a heart attack? Oh, well, you can go ahead and stay outside then, and we're not going to deal with you. It's like, wow, it just it turned into something else, didn't it?
You would never say that to a person who keeps on eating McDonald's, even though they have a heart history. You would never say that to a drug addict, even though it's their 50th time getting Narcan, so they can bring them back to life. You know, these are people that are slowly or immediately choosing things that worsens their medical condition. And you could claim the same thing about COVID vaccines, that because I'm not taking it, I'm worsening my situation, which no, it's just a preventative. But you know, the justification got weirder and weirder. Yeah. And you were in the best of states in San Diego, Cali, more so.
I wasn't in San Diego when the pandemic hit.
Oh, okay. So how was it for you then? What during pre-pandemic, like what were you doing? What were your plans? And how did COVID coming in unannounced totally affect you?
Well, I was living in Sacramento, which is the capital of California. So, and that's about a 9-hour drive from San Diego. So, northern California, different part of the country, different part of the state. So the way they handled it here was in Sacramento. It was interesting because you really did have the divide. Sacramento is very much in the heart of the Central Valley, which has a lot of country folk, but inside of Sacramento, because it is the capital, you have a lot of politically left-leaning people. So at the time I was teaching high school, and I was not only teaching high school, but the school that I was teaching at was kind of rare that this school was an indoor school. And I know that's pretty common on the East Coast and places like that, but it's not very common for that in the West Coast. So it was not only teaching high school with like classes filled with 30 students, but it was an indoor school where the hallways, everything was enclosed. So I remember they were like, well, are we going to shut down? Or are we not? The big conversations were happening about that. And when they decided to shut down, it's like, all right, 2 weeks to slow the spread. We're only going to be out of school for 2 weeks. Don't worry about it. I forgot which month it was. Was it maybe like May or April or May, I think is when everything finally shut down. So it was coming close to the end of the school year. And I remember
15 days to slow the spread.
Yeah, exactly. 2 weeks to slow the spread, 15 days. We're going to shut down. And after that, we're all going to come back. So we had an emergency meeting. All the teachers came together and we said, all right, we have to do an emergency plan you have to prepare their work for the next 2 weeks. And from there, we'll come back and then we'll just continue teaching the way it is. But for now, it's going to be 2 weeks. Take your schoolwork home. We'll do a little bit of Zoom meetings, but that's it. And it never came back. Everything just kind of shut down. And I will tell you this: one of the big positives that I got a lot more sleep. That's for sure. I was very sleep deprived, and as a teacher, I wasn't making a lot of money. So one of the other things that I needed to do was I had to do Lyft. So I would Uber. I was a driver, so I was driving around. It completely killed that industry. It was so hard to try to get riders to come, and everybody shifted over to meal delivery services. So like Grubhub and DoorDash and all of that. So, that was interesting, and just so much more time on my hands. And I was dating Chula at the time, and her roommates were a little more scared of everything going on. So even though I wanted to see her every day, her roommates basically told her like, no, you better stay away from him for 2 weeks. And I didn't get to see her for 2 weeks because we have to be safe. And it's like, who cares? I'm seeing you every day. Why do I all of a sudden I have to stop seeing you? So it was tough. And it was kind of...
So the world was trying to keep you apart, both of you apart. Wow, what a romance story.
They hate
wow.
Them.
You guys like fought through.
We did. We fought.
Literally, the world was against you.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was me here in California. But you have a very interesting story about what happened during the pandemic. Tell me about that.
Yeah, my man. I mean, prior to this, life became laissez-faire for me because I felt like I had accomplished a lot of goals. And my usual thing of just being a landlord, Muay Thai, traveling and volunteering. Anytime I traveled, I always made sure to volunteer for a week. Happened to be in Peru for a month. Did my traveling part, was volunteering. Pandemic started. Peru said that they were going to shut down for a month. Outgoing flights as well. Even you could be the son of the German president and you cannot get out of Peru. No incoming, no outgoing. It was really crazy. Australians, Americans, Europeans were all trapped. Myself, dual citizenship, I was happily stuck. I've always described it that way because I was volunteering at this children's home that receives disabled youth from all over Peru, from the jungle, the desert, the city, the mountains, the coast, anywhere from Peru. Usually referred through some church to the clinic here in near Lima, and I volunteered here almost annually since I was 22, 23. founded by an American doctor, does a lot of great work, rehab, therapies, surgeries, cancer treatments, other stuff for disabled youth. And it happened while I was here. Things got super crazy, quarantine hardcore. You couldn't go outside unless it was within a certain time between, let's say, noon to 4, which one could look back and say, oh, okay, so instead of having people come spread out throughout the day where there's less exposure, have them all come in at the same time and desperately, in a frenzy, try to buy all the groceries they need. Then they tried this really unique thing because they were trying to control the amount of people that will walk around in public, where they would give them codes or essentially public passports so they could walk out in public. But then there was so much false documentation that they enacted this weird, even more unique rule where only men can go out on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and women Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, right? And what was comical about this was I was the one who was picking up the donations for the children's home from the local grocery store. They were very generous. They were very kind to us. We survived because of them. I had to go out and pick up these donations. So the joke was, okay, Junior, on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, we're going to put a wig on you, and we just need you to practice your walk, okay? So,
and that's why you're drinking out of a girl's cup for your wine.
Well, yeah, this is the glass that they gave me as a present. No, I had this in my cupboard. Yeah, bro. So that was my experience. I mean, it was over 35 kids, all ranging from being babies to school age, preteens, teenagers. Super unique experience of my life. There were some other volunteers also trapped, a Chinese girl, Irish, American girl, and German girl. I became super close friends with La Patala. Patala, her name is Yvette. She was a professor at the children's home. We are super tight as friends, so much so that I also co-host with her for a La Patala show. And crazy moments that happened while I was there.
How long were you there?
5 months. 5 months. And the quarantine lasted further than that. But dude, there were, I would say, God's providence as well was very real. Like, I discovered what people meant by that. The cooks and the director would start verbalizing their anxieties about funding and food, because the first month everybody's generous, and it made me think about what my survivalist buddy that I have in town. He thinks that way, and some people may think he's odd because of it, but he says everybody's nice the first day. There's usually 72 hours worth of food in every household. After the first day, then people start realizing what's really happening. And then the third day is where desperation starts kicking in, where your neighbors or non-neighbors start knocking at your door and asking you for food. And then your fourth day is usually when the bucket hits the fan, where people start saying, no, we know you have food. You're going to give it to us.
Wow.
So that was one concern we definitely had in Peru. But okay, we had the struggles of finances. I know the first month they were doing okay, but all these benefactors, they were just not making money. So less funds coming in. There were moments where there was no meat's running out rather. And then what would happen? Someone will knock on the door. Hey, I have these turkeys that I didn't sell from the local rotisserie shop that here. If I don't give it to you, they expire. You want them? Perfect. Same thing with potatoes, same thing with fruit. Just the very second that we're dropping in stock is literally when it knocks at the door. Wow. So that's what I meant by God's providence. Beautiful stuff, dude. Wow. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, I didn't experience much of that compared to what you were doing. It was quite literally survival for you, especially for having all these kids that you had under your care. And you became the father figure, one of the father figures who was there, and I'm assuming that they could feel protected under you. So that's awesome. I mean, for me, it was. I remember the first time I went to the grocery store and they forced me to wear a mask. I quite literally got angry, and I'm like, who do these people think they are trying to put a mask on my face? Like, I'm fine. I don't need it. You know, I don't need to be. It's on me. If I'm gonna get sick, let me get sick. But eventually, you kind of end up caving on some of the things like that, and I did. So I mean, eventually, everybody started wearing masks, right? So.
The line that I heard, which I think summarizes it well, is fear will cause you or others to give up certain liberties.
Yeah.
Now, that could be, somebody could say, well, dude, that's kind of an overreaction. We just want to prevent transmission, so less death. You like, take it easy. It's like, okay, sure. You could be right. Let's say the mask did work. All the masks work, even the handkerchief, the bandana mask that people will wrap around their faces. Let's just say they assumed they work. But if they worked and you're wearing it, you're not being medically honest, contextually honest, by forcing somebody else to wear it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's a problem where you're infringing on someone else's right. If you as a local city, a local medical board, county or state, putting these rules, these parameters to the local businesses. Now, if they want to function, they're supposed to do this or they shut down. And that's what happened a lot. I think some of the hero stories, I would call them, it happened in New Jersey. I just kept on hearing Jersey, which is my state of growth where I grew up, whether it's the local gym owner who was shut down like 10 times, and then they even sealed his door.
That's crazy.
What did he do? He broke the door off and left it open, and anybody could come in whatever hours they wanted. And then there was a pizza shop, I think it was Jersey or New York, but essentially he was fined from being open. So what does he do? He essentially says, it's a donation. You pick up and you donate what you feel like. So he's not open. He's just serving pizza. And that's how he had got around it. Of course, the city didn't like that. And of course, beautifully, many people came from all around to support and donated a lot. So that was, good stories like that.
So Sacramento is one of they call it the farm to fork capital. So a lot of restaurants in this area, and a lot of these restaurants get their food locally because there's, the Central Valley of California
really
is known for their produce and food and agriculture. So you had these restaurants who all of a sudden had to get shut down because there weren't enough people coming to dine at their restaurants. There were, a lot of people were doing DoorDash and stuff, but not a lot of people were visiting these places, especially the sit-down places, a lot of the more expensive sit-down restaurants. So I think they said two out of every 3 restaurants in Sacramento eventually shut down, something to that effect. So it was a pretty staggering number to hear. And, I'm not sure if you knew this, but all these wineries got shut down, all these restaurants got shut down, but there was one winery that got the special privilege of remaining open, and this was the winery that was owned by some guy you probably never heard of him. His name is Gavin Newsom. He's the governor of California. So his winery stayed open, and he was seen. He was telling people, "Don't go out to eat. Don't stay home." Meanwhile, he was seen with all his buddies at the what is it, the kitchen?
French.
Yeah, it's called. I believe it's called not the kitchen. The French, the laundry or something like that. Yeah,
laundry.
Yeah, the laundry is like a French.
Many, even many people on the medical board for the government were caught doing that. So the governor of Michigan, Whitmore, telling people stop traveling. The governor of, I think, Colorado, don't travel, and they literally sent that while one was in a yacht, going with her friends. Going across state, and then the other one was flying from Colorado to Texas, I believe, for the holidays.
Yeah,
these people, right? The audacity. Yeah. But I mean, we must be suckers, or at least some of us, because there's been no accountability for that. So it's on them. It's on the citizens.
Well, we give passes selectively to the people who are in power, or they take it because they're like, oh well, rules for thee, not for me is the typical line, right? So it applies to you, but not for me because I'm special because I'm the one making all these decisions. And I don't know, it's frustrating, it's irritating. There's this podcaster, financial podcaster, and it's funny though because he calls it the Fauci pandemic. The Fauci pandemic. It's the Fauci pandemic, and it's like you look at the hypocrisy of the things that he was doing versus the things that he was saying. And it's
the man was caught on emails between him and somebody high up. I think it was like somebody asking for his advice. I think it was the Australian government, somebody from the Australian Medical Board asking for advice. And he says, don't worry about masks. It's more for show. A month or two later, when for whatever reason, I'm not going to accuse him without evidence and stuff is coming out that it may have come from Wuhan, which was funded by the organization, which is funded by U.S. funds,
and which
he approves by the NHI. So it was to his benefit to go hardcore, and then also claim that it didn't come from the Wuhan, it came from bats or whatever. So we'll see if he ever gets any accountability. I sure hope so. What's also crazy, so it's beautiful and it's crazy. You know this. There were executive orders in Michigan, New York, and Wisconsin by the governors to go hardcore. No organization, no protests, no open businesses unless you meet certain parameters. And you're required to wear masks, get vaccines, et cetera, right? And they coerce that more so on businesses as well if they want to function. Years pass, in the state Supreme Court, even a lot of them being left-leaning. The Wisconsin Supreme Court, for example, were very much left-leaning, but they still condemned those executive orders and said that was illegal for them to do. Which made so true when I heard from some podcasters back in the day, this is totally illegal, but the only way they're going to get away with it is if the will of the people allows it. Yep. So he said, in New York, Cuomo's going to get away with it. Yeah. No one's going to do anything. The man's just too powerful. Governor Whitmore, she has enough of her dirty hands in the pot kind of deal. And I didn't know who it was for Wisconsin. So that's what it was. That's what it was. And atrocities that we saw in Cuomo, New York, with the nursing homes. Yeah, he would be sending COVID positive patients back to the nursing homes, and they were dying by the droves. That's why even left-leaning people turned their backs on him and are going hardcore into criminal investigation against him. Even now, they're still trying to do that.
Well, weren't there ice trucks sitting out in front of these buildings to keep the bodies cold after the people would pass away? They would just have these trucks where they would just kind of load up the bodies because morgues were filled. The city got hit hard, and and zero accountability as of yet. So hopefully these investigations go somewhere.
Yeah. And for those who don't know what COVID is, I just wanted to define it really quick. Viral infection that causes acute respiratory distress. So it's a viral infection, not a bacterial one. So there's no antibiotics that you could take for this. It's only really symptomatic relief that you can get from it, or to try to stabilize you when you go into this acute, meaning immediate respiratory distress that usually causes a buildup of fluid in your lungs, causing poor oxygen exchange. And part of the reason why there was such a fear with this novel disease is that novel meaning it's new. It's also it functions very interesting, that whole spike protein thing. I don't know if that's something that's completely unfamiliar to the medical realm. No, I mean, as far as I know, it's like, what was it? Like the 19th version of COVID. So it wasn't unfamiliar to them, but it definitely had its unique.
Well, most flus, I think, are coronavirus. So this, I think they called it 19 because it came out in 2019. But if you look at a lot of these regular flu viruses, they're called coronaviruses. So it's not. It's just something that's a lot stronger.
Okay. And also, what was frightening about it was that the traditional therapies were not working. And yes, if I were a medical professional and if a person was having poor oxygen exchange and giving them oxygen or putting them on the ventilator was worsening their situation, which is what I heard was happening, then dang, like I would be freaking out because what I know to do to fix the situation isn't working. One of the things that I was super saddened by but impressed was just the true grit of the Peruvian people. There was this documentary that came out while I was there, brought me to tears when I saw it. Anytime I see a humble woman, especially an elderly woman, doing whatever it takes to survive, it actually does hit me raw. And what they did in this documentary was follow a mother who was in Lima with her baby and her child, and they were street vendors. The husband was back at home in the jungle in taking care of the crops. And that's what, for whatever reason, that's what they chose was best for them as a family, just get ahead in life. Well, obviously, you couldn't even be in the streets during the pandemic in Peru. And within a month or so, hundreds of thousands, we call them ambulantes, street vendors, decided to return back to their pueblo because it just wouldn't make sense. And how do they get back to their pueblo, especially when all tourist buses have stopped, all public transportation, except for the essential workers, have stopped. So they had to walk. They had to walk back to. So imagine this woman, this indigenous Incan beautiful mother, with her baby wrapped in those colorful colors, wrapped in her back. And they're always kind of like hunched forward, right? And carrying one bag of whatever supply she has, and in her other hand, her child. She went up and down the Andes Mountains, and she said a line that there was a moment where truckers would throw food and juice boxes out the window. They couldn't stop because they don't want to lose momentum, but they at least wanted to offer some relief. Occasionally, a trucker would offer a lift, and that was nice, but that wasn't a guarantee, and they had so far to go. So the documentary does have a happy ending where they both do make it home. They even quarantine themselves for like a week or so before they actually hug. Wow. But that was a unique circumstance. And yeah, dude, that definitely brought me to tears. Such a tough time. We know that the COVID was hard for some. I had to learn to be cautious with my lingo, especially around people with opposing ideas, because I realized it could hurt them, because I don't know if they have those beliefs because they lost somebody. I remember I stupidly said to my older brother I forget exactly what I was saying, but essentially I was saying, dude, like, you're not responsible for people who die. And I didn't really know where it was coming from, all this, let's just say, defensiveness towards being precautionary people. And then he tells me one of his closest friends from work passed away, who was a super cool, loving dude. And when he told me that, I was like, oh, I put my foot in my mouth there. Yeah. So I learned to try to be understanding and cautious with my lingo, but I also learned to not let them walk over me as well.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's yeah. It's so easy to want to get political and angry at each other, to start screaming at each other, because that's where we are in America nowadays, where if you oppose someone, you just, you get angry at them, and then you just immediately attribute motive on their behalf, and it's sobering to see that when it actually comes from a place of experience and a place of hurt. So I want to ask, did you get COVID?
Yeah, I did. When I came back after all that, being in Peru, I got hit in November 2020. And let me tell you, I could not walk up a flight of stairs without huffing and puffing. High fever. I just slept. And for a month. Lost weight. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's how it hit me. Never lost flavor.
Taste.
Can happily say that. Yeah. How about you?
I got it at the end of the first year that I was here, that I came to the U.S. So December, what was it? So I didn't realize I was exposed, but I went home for Christmas. My parents live about an hour away from Sacramento. So I didn't realize that one of my roommates got it, but he didn't say anything. And we shared the same bathroom and was exposed, had no idea, didn't show any symptoms. Went home for Christmas, hugging my family, kissing my mom. It's like, like it's nothing. Didn't feel sick. And then December 27th comes around. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go back to Sacramento just to go rest up a few days. I remember getting in the car and feeling these like spurts of like vertigo, just like split seconds. And it was happening every few minutes. And I'm driving and I'm like, this is weird. And I just realized like, man, I'm getting a little cold, and didn't think much of it. But I got home. From the moment that I got out of my car, I grabbed my bags. And from the moment I stepped out of my car to the moment I walked into my front door, I was shivering. I was shivering from how cold I was. I couldn't control myself. I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I need to get warm and I can't. So I ran upstairs and I turned on the shower as hot as I can. And I stood in the shower for 30 minutes with just like scorching hot water over me because I just could not get warm. It was so steamy. Just the bathroom was full of steam. And I'm like, I just could not get warm. I step out of the bathroom as the shower and I look at myself in the mirror. My face is blue and my lips are blue. And I'm like, oh, this isn't good. I'm like, this is going to be a long night. And I went into my room and I wrapped up in blankets and I really couldn't sleep that night. And the next morning I'm just sitting in the bed and I'm feeling this vertigo. And I called the nurse and I'm like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. And she's like, okay, I need you to go to the emergency room. So go to the emergency room, get tested. And lo and behold, I had COVID. Well, from there, it was 10 days of just decline. And I lost taste, but not completely. The only thing I was actually able to taste were sweet things. So any salty food, anything like that, just tasted like nothing. So I quarantined in my room, and I ended up, I couldn't even sit up because I was so exhausted. And one of the symptoms that you don't really hear about that I got the runs, and it was bad. Mm-hmm. And it was almost uncontrollable. And standing up and going to the bathroom and coming back, that would just like exhaust me. And I lost 10 pounds in those 10 days that I was sick, and I didn't have any energy to talk, and it was rough. But in the end, I got over it and got much better. So it wasn't fun, that's for sure. So I remember my parents driving up, leaving stuff at the door, and me, picking it up, getting food, but the fever was miserable. I think once I broke the fever, that's when everything started to get better.
Dude, it hit you pretty hard, man. Yeah. Almost lost you, Chulo.
It felt like it, First, my lungs started hurting, but not because I couldn't breathe, but because I was laying down the entire time. And it just like, my lungs just felt like they were getting crushed.
Yeah, and I don't think you would be immunologically vulnerable right now. I know you have a cancer history, a multiple cancer history, but you do have the risk factor of being heavier set.
Yeah.
And that's actually like a huge one. It like jumps you to casualty rate.
Yeah.
So all right, man.
Yeah. You made it. Congratulations.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, man. But so many things happen to us societally as well. See, I wasn't here in the U.S. I'm sure things happen here, but the ones that were definitely very noticeable in Peru was that the education system finally invested in laptops for all the youth in all of Peru. And where there wasn't internet, wasn't Wi-Fi before it, in the deep recesses of the jungle, the desert, the mountains, the internet finally arrived. Wow. And children were able to have schooling for the first time. One thing that was also funny about that was there were many teachers that were either half-assing it or essentially because they were forced to now do their online sessions and be present and log in, and then students had to log in. So there's proof, there's accountability, there's records, video records. So what could I say? There's good teachers and there's bad teachers. And so I was able to help out with that. I just know my friend who was in the education system, she told me that. Another thing is that in the medical world, there's also this resistance against technology. Everything's done by paper and pen. And they were all required. If you wanted to function as a hospital, a clinic, whatever, urgent clinic, you need to do everything online, digital now. Wow. And that's just good because communication is better. My background is nursing. There's just less errors. There's more accountability for everybody because we know who wrote the order. Yeah. So stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I being a teacher during that time, let me tell you, man, it was difficult because not only, you saw some of the teachers who weren't doing what they were supposed to do, but what you also saw was for students who thrived being in the classroom, how detrimental it was for them to go home and stay at home for that long and not be able to be with friends. And a lot of these students, when we finally returned back to the classroom, they were no longer the kids that I remember them. They were drained of their personality. They were robots or zombies, and could barely function. On the flip side, some of the students who were horrible students, who could not sit still in the classroom, they were either getting their work done and being super successful, or somebody was helping them. I can't tell you, but some of the students actually did really well and thrived in that setting of being at home. But man, it was truly like pulling teeth. Like for me, I enjoyed being in the classroom, being able to interact with them. You can poke fun at these kids, and especially teenagers, because I was teaching teenagers at the time, and they like to kind of dish it back. And as a teacher, especially in high school, you have to be able to dish it with them. But to try to interact with them, over Zoom was impossible. Let me tell you, I got to know these kids' ceiling fans and foreheads better than I did the rest of their faces, because all they ever did was kept the camera only like you could barely see their eyes, and it was mostly their ceiling fans. It's like, I don't know if you're listening or not. You're probably not. You're probably on YouTube. You're probably playing on your phone, and there's nothing I can do about it. Here I am. And then the other thing, which was super interesting, is people who were not even students were logging onto these classes. And when you, because this happened at the end of the school year, but the next school year continued, right? So we were in a pandemic for a while. So when the next school year started, I got a bunch of freshmen that I didn't know. So here I am taking roll, and I'm like, okay, I got everybody. He's like, but there's a couple extra squares more than my students. I don't know what this is. And then I see these kids like turn their camera on, flashing a blunt on the camera and like throwing gang signs and saying things. And it's like, all right, got to kick you out. You're not part of. And I don't know how they got my the idea to give it to my class. Probably one of their friends, But it really was
probably their friends.
Yeah, it was a learning experience, and it was horrible for everyone all around.
Yeah. I just remember hearing Las Vegas. I think it was their third or fourth suicide for a high school kid that was, because there was this political battle between coming back to school or staying at home.
Yeah.
Let's just say it was the fourth one, because they're hard learners. where a teenager took his life. What did they do right after that? They brought everybody back to school. There is the Canadian, it's almost like the Fauci for Canada. She's at least a PR one, Asian lady who sounds very smart, communicates very well, but she was very much all strict COVID lockdowns like they did in Canada. She has done two things that are very interesting that she's willing to publicly say. One, that she is so saddened that her daughter now suffers from a speech impediment because with wearing the mask as a youth, you look at each other's communication and verb use of your facial muscles. I don't know. The point is that because this was always covered, she didn't develop that skill, and now her daughter has the speech impediment. And then two, they went through this phase. They've stopped doing it now because they're essentially just trying to like let COVID be forgotten about. But there was a phase where the media was saying, "Oh, forgive and forget. We didn't know what we didn't know." Tweets and posts and titles. Better to look forward than look to the past. Better to hope than to blame. and I'm like, yeah, that would be cool if like we respected each other. But no, you were the dude telling me that I couldn't fly, that I shouldn't receive that heart surgery because I didn't get that COVID vaccine. No, thank you, sir. No, thank you, Piers Morgan. No, thank you, Stephen Colbert. So, yes.
Yeah. It was always the people who were wrong that said, let's just move on and forget about what happened. Let's just look to the future. It's always the wrong ones that say about that, huh? It's never the ones that were like, hold on a second, I'm the one that you were trying to tear down. And no, it's not going to happen.
So if you could just summarize what you learned, and I'll summarize what I learned, at least for the pandemic. I would say, for me at least, suffering is suffering, and the world wasn't forced to endure that suffering. Something different, unusual, new hit us. It's unescapable. It could be a blessing or a curse. Could be more of one or the other. But suffering is suffering, and it totally always depends on how we react to it. It can either tear us down, destroy us, beat us down, or it could be something that we accept gracefully and use it to become a better person. What would you say?
I think I learned that humans are still humans, and the fact that we still haven't changed. Humanity is we're the same people as the same people in World War II, who went along with an ideology that was most popular. I learned that through the midst of that, people will do some horrible things to try to make you submit. On the flip side, I also learned the incredible graciousness of a lot of people, the people that are willing to put themselves out there in harm's way to care and to love those who have nobody, and the people that, I would call them heroic, that are willing to go out there and potentially get themselves sick just to not allow somebody to die alone. People like that. So it really hurts to see humanity, how horrible they can be. It's a warning, but at the same time, it gives you a lot of hope for how people can be.
Amen, amen. And with that, everybody, we thank you so much for joining us on, again, another great topic, the pandemic that came unannounced. Stay tuned for the next episode. We think it's going to be Dating Tips 101. You're going to hear it from Papi. You're going to hear it from Chulo. If you act now for a small payment of $5.99, 4 small payments, you could buy Chulo's Dating Tips to get the chula of your life. Coming on. It's already on back order, ladies and gentlemen. So if you act now, though, we'll get it to you for that price. It'll be comical. It'll be fun. We look forward to doing it for you next week.
Absolutely.
Till next time, this is the Papi and Chulo Show. I am Papi.
And I am Chulo.
Take care, everybody.